Welcome back. Last time, we watched leader Janita deal with a massive county lines crisis at Woodlands Academy. In her initial, top-down response, well, it was a total disaster. Today, we're going to break down how she started to turn things around by digging into what really makes her team tick.
Right, so Janita's command and control style didn't just create a little stress, it was causing her core team of designated safeguarding leads, the DSLs, to completely shatter. This email wasn't just a warning sign, it was a full-blown siren telling her that her entire strategy had failed, miserably. With her best people literally ready to walk out the door, Janita had this huge realization. Pushing harder wasn't the answer. She had to stop and figure out what was truly motivating and, more importantly, demotivating each and every person. She needed a whole new playbook.
Her first approach was classic Theory X, just giving orders, setting deadlines, and expecting people to fall in line. But it backfired big time. All she got was compliance on the surface, but underneath, it was creating this toxic soup of resentment and despair. Not a great look when you're in the middle of a crisis.
So, this is where things get really interesting. Right before a super important, high-stakes meeting with her pastoral lead, Amara, Janita turns to this powerful psychological framework, McClelland's needs theory. The basic idea is that we are all driven by three fundamental needs, just in different combinations.
First up, you've got the need for achievement. Think of these folks as your star players, your problem solvers. They get a huge buzz from cracking tough challenges and seeing results. The problem? When a crisis throws up obstacles they literally can't control, they can get incredibly frustrated and start to feel like a total failure.
Then there's the need for affiliation. These are the heart and soul of the team, the glue that holds everyone together. They're motivated by connection, collaboration, and just being liked. In a crisis, what they need most is to hear, "We're all in this together." Isolation is their absolute kryptonite.
And finally, the need for power. Now hold on, this doesn't mean they want to be dictators. Not at all. It's about the drive to have an impact, to influence outcomes for the better. These are the people who need their expertise to be heard and respected. If you ignore them, they check out completely.
So, armed with this new lens, Janita stopped seeing her team as one single, stressed-out unit. For the first time, she started to see individuals, each with their own unique motivational DNA that explained exactly why they were reacting the way they were.
And check this out. This is basically her diagnostic chart. She realized that Dev, her main DSL at Woodlands, was all about achievement, and this crisis had completely shattered his sense of competence. Meanwhile, Amara, the one who tried to warn everyone, was driven by that need for power and influence. And by being ignored, she was absolutely furious.
But look, this wasn't just some academic exercise for her. These insights became her new game plan, and she put it into action immediately, starting with what was probably going to be her toughest conversation. So she sits down with Amara, who just comes right out with it. She lays it all on the table, challenging Janita directly about being dismissed months ago. This isn't just venting, it's a direct plea to have her voice, her expertise, finally validated.
And here it is, the pivot point. Instead of getting defensive or making excuses, Janita gives Amara the one thing she needs to hear. 3 simple words: "You were right." In that single moment, the entire energy of the conversation changes.
But here's the genius part. Janita didn't just stop with an apology. That wouldn't have been enough. She followed it up with action. She fed Amara's need for power by giving her real authority, putting her in charge of the new training. In one move, she turned her biggest critic into a key leader in the response.
Okay, next up, Dev, her high achiever. He is completely broken by this. His entire professional identity is tied to being competent, and right now, he feels like anything but. He is on the edge of total burnout. So for him, Janita uses a totally different strategy. It's this brilliant 4-step plan to restore his sense of achievement. First, she reminds him of all his past wins. Then, she reframes the failure. It wasn't him, it was the system. Then she gives him a small, manageable win-o task. She basically rebuilt his confidence brick by brick. And the difference is just night and day. Yesterday, her rigid one-size-fits-all approach was tearing the team apart. Today, by switching to a strategy that recognized and supported individual needs, she was finally starting to get real engagement. She was putting the team back together.
But just as it feels like she's finally getting her footing, just as that trust is starting to be rebuilt, the crisis takes another terrifying turn.
A late-night phone call. It's the police specialist from the organized crime unit, and you know a call like that is never, ever good news. The problem she was about to find out was much bigger than they thought.
The police now believe the number of students being exploited by this network was potentially double what they knew, and worse, the students they hadn't identified yet were likely the ones who were most deeply involved.
And then the officer says this, a sentence that just changes everything. The threat wasn't just coming from outside the school anymore. There was now the horrifying possibility that students were being intimidated and controlled by their own peers, right there in the hallways. And this leaves us with a huge, critical question for any leader out there. Janita has just painstakingly rebuilt her team by meeting their individual needs. But how do you keep that team motivated when the crisis doesn't just get worse? It gets exponentially more complex, and the pressure becomes almost unbearable. We'll dig into that in the next part of our series.